Safety for Refugees, Module 11. This video includes the reflection question. A refugee is a person who is outside their home country because they have suffered or feared persecution on account of race, religion, nationality, or political opinion, because they are a member of a persecuted social category of persons, or because they are fleeing a war. During economic recession, should the United States slow down on the number of refugees brought into our country? What are some of the solutions to help them prosper? If you were hiring, would you look at a refugee applicant? Have any of you had the chance to work with or meet a refugee here in the Boise area? Did they share the transition and how it has been for them and their family? Refugees in Idaho. Is it our duty as a country to aid those who come to America seeking refuge? Why or why not? Boise, Idaho is a center for refugees in the United States. What benefits are there to setting up refugee processing centers in countries that are sources for refugees? How do we benefit as a country for assisting those who seek refuge? What should the U.S. do about children arriving from Central America without their parents? This is a graph that shows you the percentage who would offer them shelter and support versus those who would deport them immediately in the blue. Is it wrong that refugees come to America illegally, or is it justified given their circumstances in their home countries? This is a really good way to look at an ethical dilemma. What kind of protection or opportunities should we offer refugees that are already in America? What can the United States do to help the men, women, and children that are still in dangerous situations in other countries? Should we offer them help or direct our energy elsewhere? Here's a slide, refugees regaining their professional skills and the Muslim population that is growing in Idaho. Refugee Day in the Magic Valley in Idaho. Here, 19 refugees in Boise celebrate World Refugee Day by becoming citizens of the United States in 2013. This slide is from 2014. Nearly 280 migrant children are already staying at a Tucson shelter. Now another location could be coming to Oracle, several miles into the Catalina Mountains. Who is hosting the world's refugees in 2014? You can see that there's quite a bit of refugee situation, particularly in the Middle East and parts of Africa. For the last remaining Palestinian residents of Yarmouk outside of Damascus, this week's takeover by the Islamic State in Iraq and Levant is a siege within a siege. For almost 2 years, the regime of President Bashar al-Assad has been suffocating the rebel-held Yarmouk, a Palestinian refugee settlement turned residential neighborhood just 10 minutes from the heart of Damascus. Water has been cut off, available only when an AIDS group sneak it in, and medical supplies and food are scarce. Yarmouk has shrunk from a pre-war population of 180,000 to just 18,000, with about 200 people starving to death. Palestinian residents of the besieged refugee camp of Yarmouk wait at the gate of the camp to receive aid supplies from the United Nations on the southern edge of the Syrian capital of Damascus. The deteriorating situation brought on by Syria's civil war prompted the UN Security Council to call an emergency meeting Monday, April 6th of 2015 to discuss this camp at Yarmouk, calling for safe evacuation for the Palestinians, protection for the refugees, and humanitarian access to the camp. This is from February of 2015. Nearly 1 million people have been dispossessed by the conflict in eastern Ukraine, with the recent upsurge in violence causing massive destruction of buildings and infrastructure, the collapse of basic services, and a spike in the numbers fleeing fighting, the United Nations Refugee Agency reported today. According to the United Nations Humanitarian Center, over 2 million people have fled Syria since the beginning of the conflict in 2011, making this one of the largest refugee exoduses in recent history with no end in sight. The refugee population in the region could reach over 4 million by the end of 2014. UN is certainly offering aid to Syrian refugees. From June of 2015, more than 2,800 asylum seekers have crossed Syria's border with Turkey since UNRWA moved to open its checkpoints for migrants over the weekend. In this slide, an unexpected and rare snowstorm hit Lebanon on Tuesday, killing 4 Syrian refugees and forcing hundreds of thousands of displaced Syrians to endure freezing winter conditions. These are Syrians waiting to cross over into Turkey. The number of 3,000 Syrians is in line with the initial estimates of Turkey's capacity to accept new asylum seekers, officials believe. Millions have crossed into Syria's northern neighbor in the past years looking for shelter from the civil war that has been raging in Syria. Those of you who know who Angelina Jolie is, she is the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees Special Envoy. In the Iraqi crisis, 150,000 Kurd refugees are surrounded by Islamic extremists. Thousands of Kurds, including children, have been trapped in the mountains without food and water for days as a major international intervention gets underway. There are reports that thousands of them may have already lost their lives after being trapped in the mountains without food or water for days. In Nairobi, East African nations are expecting South Sudan's refugee numbers to rise drastically in the coming year as more people flee violence and a deepening humanitarian crisis in the country. Kenya's top diplomat also says her country will keep pressure on South Sudan's political leaders to agree on a peace deal. Humanitarian agencies say the number of South Sudanese seeking refuge in neighboring countries could rise to 821,000 in the next year, if a lasting peace is not achieved. From a May 10, 2015 radio program on the CBC radio, there are more than 50 million refugees and internally displaced people in the world. So far this year, more than 1,700 have drowned in the Mediterranean while attempting to flee from Libya to Italy, and it seems we have no idea what to do about it other than to say, don't expect us to take all of you in. From Kuwait City, in March of this year, the UN High Commissioner for Refugees told an international conference of donors the Syrian war had reached a dangerous tipping point with increasing desperation among refugees and in host communities and a widening gap between humanitarian needs and available funding. It is essential that immediate humanitarian needs and longer-term resilience programs are supported from the totality of resources available to donors. Humanitarian assistance budgets are vastly insufficient to meet even the most basic needs, and development actors must step forward to support the longer-term efforts. Clearly, with the number of refugees in the world today, there are an incredible amount of humanitarian needs. Finally, your reflection question for week 4. This is due Saturday, August 1st by 11:59 p.m. How has discussing the topics of this class helped you to become more aware of your cultural perspectives? And finally, the civic engagement experience and reflection is due Saturday, August 1st by 11:59 p.m. Don't forget,